All right, so I started taking this apart, and a few people have made mention that, my God, that's a lot of wiring. And I guess it is, but the way I always address this makes it fairly simple. You look at it as all the different systems, all right? Like first and foremost, this was the ABS. I just pulled the whole harness out, disconnected all of that. And once you take out the things you don't need, you don't need, it starts to thin the herd a little bit. It's pretty simple, or there is a simple way to do this. Right down in here is where the engine ECM is. Let's see, right? You can almost see it. Yeah, almost. Anyways, that engine's ECM has two plugs on it. One is going to have this gray colored harness. You see the difference in the gray and the blue? The gray colored harness, or tan, I guess that is. Tan harness goes to the engine. That's the Cummins wiring harness that's just for the engine. Anything with that blue loom is part of the chassis that uses some of the inputs from the engine. If you see that harness, that gray harness right there, that is the Cummins ECM. Like that goes ECM harness for the engine. It goes from the ECM onto the engine. Now that doesn't mean that's all it takes to run the engine. That just means that's what that ECM has for inputs and outputs from the engine. Now there still may be other inputs and outputs the ECM needs, which comes out of the other harness, which we call the OE, which goes to the chassis. That one is a black, I don't know if you can see the ECM down in here. Yeah, see that black connector right at the tip of my finger? You see there's a second connector down there to your right. The black one goes to what's called the OE, which is the chassis. And that one is where the ECM gets all the other things it needs, anything else we need. So I separate it by system. And it makes it much simpler. Because all this might look intimidating, which, we don't have a schematic, but you can figure this out. It's not that difficult. I guess my point is just don't be intimidated. It's just wires. It's not a big deal. So anyways, the next thing we're going to do is continue taking some of this apart. And this engine actually comes out easiest through the bottom. There's a cross member right here. The engine mounts, transmission bell housing mounts are right here, and there's one in the front. I can probably lower this thing down and just lift the frame, like jack up the motor and transmission, lift the frame out from over it. That might be easiest. But I'd like to dissect this because there's going to be a lot of parts and pieces I need. So I think we're going to try and cut this apart, take it apart in sections, because I don't need this louvered grill cover here that's air operated, but I wouldn't mind having that for something else. So let's get started. Okay, I've got all the electronics stripped. The dash is out there, instrument cluster, steering column, and all the pass-through connectors. The importance of these pass-through connections is if I put this in what I think I'm going to, I have to come through a firewall, and I might need these. I mean, I could always do away with this and then rewire it and solder it, but if I don't have to, this is much easier. I might even cut this section out and put it in as one piece. We'll have to wait and see. But we're just about done up here. We got a little bit more here to take loose. I've been taking system by system apart, like I was saying earlier. I do it system by system so I know what I need and what I don't need. There is some things for the engine that are mounted on the bus chassis. Like back in here are the solenoids that control the grid heater right here. So I need to get those disconnected. A lot of times when you're doing this, you got to figure out which way is best to take it apart. Is it better to take it apart here and leave it with the chassis until you pull it out, or is it better to take it apart at the chassis and then lay it on the motor, engine, whatever? But we're making progress. Next is I got to start getting all of this out of the way, and then get the louvers out, get the air charge cooler and the radiator out of the way. All right, this is a whole cooler pack. It was mounted, what was holding the radiator, intercooler, and the louvers was that big metal bracket going across the front from frame rail to frame rail. So now I gotta lift this. It's pretty heavy. So in one of my videos, I was using the gradle and I was moving something pretty little, and the guy left a comment. He says, typical. You guys buy these great big pieces of equipment that you don't need. And I just found it funny, because obviously that was it must have been the only video of mine he's ever watched, because this thing probably weighs 17,000 pounds. Whatever. Some people, man. Some people, you know. Hold it. Yeah. So anyways, today we gotta move the gradle. We gotta move the Kenworth with the gradle. I need to get it out of the way. I'm ready to get that old bus frame out of the shop now. So for those of you who don't watch my videos, the majority of people who watch us have watched us use this machine countless times over the years, and it is by far my most valuable piece of equipment. But we don't use it just for light stuff, and we don't use it just for heavy stuff. We use it for everything we can. Anything that it can do and make our life easier. Alright, so we're going to pick this bus chassis up, and when I pick it up, I got to be sure to be as low to the frame as I can, because I have to lift it over that engine, or at least around the engine. So let me get her set up here. It's a little bit dark, hard to see. I'll get this set up and we'll get it out of here.
Moving the engine back because everything's a mess under there, and we need to get it out of the way, cleaned up, and then we're going to bring it back in and hook the wiring back up so it doesn't get damaged, because we need to get started working to get on the backhoe, but the weather has gotten really bad, or cold and rainy, so we're going to bring it in the garage to work on it. And I believe the transmission has to come out of it, so it would be better to do it inside.
Alright, so this is the wiring harness that goes to the chassis. It sends vital information out and receives some inputs. So that is what's the chassis. If you look in here, you can see what I was talking about with the two different plugs. Alright, this is the Cummins chassis that goes, one of these is inputs and outputs to the actual engine itself. The other one is going to be like your powers and grounds and stuff like that, which comes in off of this connector right here. So the black connector right here is the one that goes to the chassis for inputs and outputs. And you can see that here. I'll have times they'll call that the OE connector. And then this one is the one that plugs into there, and it has up here, these are all powers and grounds that go to the battery. Now these are not all the ones it takes to run. This is just the constant powers and the grounds. There will still be switched power in the black connector that turns the ECM on, or excites it, as you might say. So this is also a few things that are coming off the harness, depending on what the OE is. Like this one has, coming out of here, it has a electric fan clutch. Now, in most medium duty trucks, it's air powered. In this particular one, it's kind of like an AC compressor. It's an AC clutch with a belt right in here. And this wiring comes in and turns that on, that clutch, pulls it tight, and that's what lets it lock up and spin. So in our harness here, or OE, sometimes there'll be things like this to come off. But we're going to set all these up on top so they don't get damaged, drug, cut, or whatever. And I like to take things like this. This is that power steering one. And shove it up a way that it will stay. But get it up high enough it's not going to be dripping, but at the same time I want it pointed down so nothing gets in it, like so. Alright, so next thing I want to do is on the Cummins ISBs and ISCs and many of them, right here on the side of the timing cover is a data plate. And this will show everything about this engine, what the valve blast should be set at, what the horsepower is, which I'm assuming it's a 190 or a 210. Yeah, there. It's 190 horse.
I can't, the light's glaring.
You see it now?
Yep.
So it's 190 horse now on this one, which will suit what we're doing pretty well. So you can see I didn't take any of the accessories out. I try to do it as complete and whole as I can, because nothing will give us a better measurement, an idea of the size of where we're trying to stuff this, than leaving all this stuff in place. It really works out. I left the transmission mounts in place. This is for the filter for the transmission, the spin-on filter, which we have to replace. This is interesting. The bus had a blow-by filter. Any blow-by that came out of the crankcase over here, which is sometimes used as the oil fill, all right, they had it set up to where it came in this tube and came into an oil and vapor separator on this side. So it would come into this canister and it would separate the two, and the oil would come out of the bottom and go back into the oil pan. And then the vapors would get plumbed right back into the intake. That was kind of an interesting deal. So anyways, let's get this out. You can see the mess we got going over there. So we're going to get this out of here and get all that cleaned up.
All right, so we're bringing this motor in now to get it stripped down and get it ready to put in.
All right, so we got it inside, and now what we're going to do is start stripping off the things we know we're not going to use. We're not going to use that little small down pipe or that bracket or the turn down, any of that stuff. It's going to come off. We're going to take off the air intake because we don't have room to put that on right now. It'll just be in the way we try to fit it in there. The air charge cooler pipe is going to come off. We're going to take off the fan. It is a electric fan. I was trying to explain that earlier, but I don't think you got a good look at it. It's like an AC compressor clutch. It's electrically controlled. It's an electromagnetic magnetic coil clutch. So when you put electric to the coil windings, it sucks in this metal plate, makes contact, that drives the fan. So when this engine came from Cummins originally, it would have had the serpentine belt set up, and the bus company, when they built it, they added this AC compressor. They added that 2-groove pulley on the end of the factory Cummins crankshaft. They added this tensioner, and they added this AC compressor over here. Now we don't need any of that stuff, so we're going to take all that off. This is going to come off. We're going to do away with this draft tube the way it is. I think I saw another draft tube right there. So we'll put the plug in there. They make a screw-in plug you can put in here. Our oil fill, we'll use this one over here. This power steering reservoir is going to come off. I think that's all we have to do on this side, as far as I know. We'll take this air intake off just to make it easier. And as far as the harness goes, we'll just tidy it up real good and get ready to stuff it in. I have done measuring and measuring and measuring, and you can only measure so much. You get to a point where you're like, okay, it looks like it's going to work. I'm going to have a lot of hurdles to jump over, all that kind of stuff, but I think it's going to work. So we're going to get this all ready, and in the next video, you'll see us prepping and getting ready to stuff it in and see how it fits. I know a lot of guys are curious as to what we're doing here, and just stick around. The next video you see on this will be us test fitting, and we'll see how it goes. We got some retrofitting to do on this that, was bus related that we don't want. We're going to be changing. I don't know what we're going to do about this little bitty turbo. We may just leave it. For this application, this 190 horse is going to be more than plenty. But anyways, enough of that. Look for the next video. We'll have it all stripped down, and we hopefully be test fitting it and see what kind of troubles we're getting ourselves into. If you guys like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Leave your respectful comments down below, guys, and we will catch you on the next one.